Christopher Young is the Donald Bren Chair of Non-Western Strategic Thought. That's at the U.S. Marine Corps University. I asked him about China's role in the politics of the Korean Peninsula and what it can do to help keep moving things forward.
They have played a constructive role. I do think that the Chinese offering to be go-betweens and to say we need to go back and have discussions is useful. But what I would say, the most useful role the Chinese can play from a U.S. perspective is to be in good coordination with the United States on dealing with North Korea. So, for example, if we start sensing that there is no progress taking place as a result of any of these talks, or that North Korea, following the Olympics, starts going back to its bellicose behavior, then I think that the United States and China, if they're in good coordination, may require that we start ratcheting up the coercive measures, the sanctions. And China, as we have seen, China working with the United States on the sanctions issue does, I mean, you can argue whether or not, how much of an impact it has had, but you can make the argument that China and the United States, when working together, being on the same page, can have an effect on the Korean Peninsula. If China and the United States are not on the same page, we're going to have a very disjointed, dysfunctional cacophony of relations revolving around the Korean Peninsula. So what I would say is China can play a constructive role. It's calling for all the parties to talk, to discuss amongst each other and come up with a solution is positive. But what I would say is the best way forward is for China and the United States to be on the same sheet of music, and if necessary, to take a harder line on North Korea if necessary.
China's been really strongly urging everybody just lower the temperature, lower the temperature. And it's interesting, we see Kim Jong-un with this kind of overture on New Year's Day, and we saw again yesterday the U.S. president really not taking the bait in terms of trying to say something. He's so used to kind of throwing these slings and arrows out, actually going in much the other direction. How much do you think that's really helping to kind of lower the temperature?
You mean the fact that the Chinese have called for lowering the temperature?
Well, and also that Donald Trump didn't say anything about Rocket Man yesterday. He said, you know, I may be willing to talk to him on the phone and that sort of thing. Just both sides kind of trying to lower the temperature, it appears.
Well, if we're talking about that, though, at the same time, it hasn't, I'm not sure when it was, a few days ago, the president exchanging barbs with the North Korean leader about whose button is bigger.
That was last week.
So that was last week. So I don't know if I would give the president credit for lowering the temperature. What I would say is that what you seem to be seeing is a good cop, bad cop within the U.S. administration. So the president seems to be taking on the bad cop role, whereas Secretary Tillerson and behind the scenes are trying to calm things down. Now, you might make that argument that the good cops in the background are lowering the temperature. However, I guess what I would echo several of my fellow Asia analysts saying that's not the best way to go about bringing about good Asia policy. They need to be consistent. They need to be reading off of the same page. And so it's possible that Secretary Tillerson's work, the State Department, are succeeding in lowering the temperature along with China's calls for lowering the temperature. But that gets thrown, the monkey wrench gets thrown in when the president does his tweet